So I want to say, Francesco, what do you think? That's fine. So Francesco, you're our colleague. I work in Leipzig, and I have one colleague, Giuseppe Celano, who is spending his life engaging traditional grammars in order to linking them to grammatical data. And Francesco is the person who's sallied most deeply forward into modern linguistics. And so I'd like to hear what Francesco says.
Well, the first impression I had about this project, as I was mentioning before in the discussion, I had already spoken with the director, I think, Toon. This project presented me and we discussed it a little bit, is the fact that when I first heard about dynamic grammar, I thought something a little different. I mean, that we were coming to to a concept that uses the same word, dynamic, from a different perspective,
Yeah.
which has probably more to do with what you were saying at the end, meaning that if you're interested in rules that apply to specific authors, like for example you were talking about historians, like for example you wanted to read Thucydides and Herodotus in particular, you can get the rules that apply, that are most relevant to these authors, and maybe leave out some other rules that are more frequent in poetry, for example. But at the same time, yes, you apply a different idea of dynamics. What you are doing, it's more probably on a more top-down perspective, sort of starting from a grammatical framework and constructing a list of rules, of different rules, and then you can see the tag, the semantic, pragmatic, and logical aspects within these rules. I think one important aspect that I'm happy about, because it also has to do with things that we're talking about from the way we were approaching text and text annotation especially, is that we distinguish the different aspects that are the different theoretical approaches to grammar, meaning the semantic, keep semantics aspects, morphological aspects, and pragmatic aspects separated so that we can, yes,
yeah, we've tried to do that in the text.
This I think is very important. I think also that there could be interaction from what I was mentioning before. I mean, your more top-down approach, taking grammars, compiling a list of rules, providing maybe examples, but yeah, allowing users to work their way through the different rules, and a more bottom-up approach, meaning starting from mapping of the linguistic phenomena within the text, in order to somehow build a model, from the data from the data on the text, meaning that we can the potential interaction could be from these two approaches, that you can have even a dynamic list or a more widespread pool of examples that you can mine from.
Yeah, we have of course used the information available in existing grammars or articles. So to do something which you propose would require a lot more research actually.
So probably a wider, bigger corpus for data text. This is my first ideas, but more probably will come later.
Concerning the part where Francesco says that could be dynamically, I think you could do that with the facets if you include some facets, for example, for time or for authors.
Yes, of course, you could still add extra facets. So
and that would be, maybe it would be kind of interesting to see if some rules evolve from previous rules
Mhm.
or involve the next ones.
Mhm.
But I have no idea how to implement that. Yeah.
Two questions that
Okay.
came to my mind. First one is, do you take examples from the grammars, or are you also adding examples yourself? First one, and the second one is this grammar going to be modular, meaning that once that the data are available, if I want to add other aspects of words, like for example, I don't think you mentioned in the pragmatics part topic focus articulation, which is also a part of functional grammar. Can I add rules and link them with other?
Yeah, so for the first question, we've used a combination of, on the one hand, examples from existing grammars, and on the other hand, our own examples. Especially for the succinct example on top of each rule, we've used original examples, original sentences. Yeah, it's a bit a combination of both. But we always check the examples of existing grammars before using them, because in many cases, especially in the older grammars, there are mistakes in the sentence, or the translation is just wrong. So yeah, for your second question, of course there is this FileMaker database, so there is always a possibility to add further aspects. I talked about the history students, but of course more extensive data about pragmatics, for example, could be added. Yes. In the way it is constructed right now, this is not possible through the website, but yeah, we're always open to suggestions of how to open up the website for more interactive purposes.
Regarding the search, as if a student learns ancient Greek, he often will stumble upon a word in a text. He doesn't know what to do with it. So do you think it will be possible to enter the Greek word and maybe get some results for it?
You can enter the Greek word if it's mentioned in the rule, or for example, in the lexical information, we will often list a number of verbs that require a specific case, for example. So yes, you can also add Greek text to it, but I don't think I can type
But
Greek on this
it's
computer.
only depending on what the input is, so what the examples and the sentences for the rules are. But there will be nothing in the background that tries to analyze a word and tries to say this and that rule may apply. Okay.
If you want to do that, there are other applications. For example, the Perseus Greek word study tool, which analyzes words from a morphological point of view.
So, okay, resistant. All right. So, now this is, so the bad news is, I think it would be a miracle if you have a really robust system a year from now.
Yeah.
And the good news is that, and I guess bad news is you're still sort of, if you're doing a talk and you mention the name FileMaker, you're still haven't gotten the level of abstraction that you ultimately want to get to have a sustainable system, but that doesn't matter, you'll get there sooner or later. And the good news is that there are 24 European languages in which Greek and Latin are taught. There's a big audience for this. I'm really interested personally, and so I work at Leipzig. My name's Gregory Crane, and we spent a lot of time thinking about how to teach Greek in a sort of different way. So that's where I'm coming from for anybody, for the general audience. And so this is a really different approach, and I'm seeing things that make me think, which I really like. And I think this is a different kind of approach that should be available, which you have multiple approaches. The issue, of course, of localization Is something you're sort of thinking about. Is this Dutch? Where's the money from? Is it Dutch money, or excuse me, Belgian, Fleming?
Yeah,
money?
it's money from university instances. Yeah.
So this is like seed money from the university, internal money to get you started.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So
well,
it's money for. It's actually it's called an educational project. So it's a project especially focused on teaching at university.
well, it's a huge research project. All the same as you're reconceptualizing. This is how people learn Greek. Is one of in Greek and Latin. It's one of the most important research problems that we face, and one that is now really interesting research problems because of all the new methods that we have, the interactive methods, and the new, and drawing upon what we know about language acquisition. And it's something which we don't recognize as a research area that it is. And so I think you're going to do more than repay the investment from your university in getting this thing started. So it's fabulous to see you doing this.
Well, we hope to get it all started by October. So
You have plenty. It's not going to be the final, the finished.
No, but it's not meant to be a finished version. Also, there is a possibility, for example, if students are writing a master's thesis, they can always write their master's thesis about one specific problem and then add the information resulting from that thesis to the application. So there's lots of possibilities for extension.
If you create a dynamic, we've all experienced those 19th century German dissertations, small dissertations about grammatical points, the future perfect in Lake Creek or whatever, and wondered, sort of been kind of horrified at them. But if you create them as dynamic documents in the sense that I think you have like a URM, a CTS URM, linking everything. So when you write your conclusions and someone's reading the damn text, you will be able to see that someone talked about this grammatical feature in this text, which is totally transforms the realizable value of that scholarly contribution. So, yeah, there's been all the presentations in the digital classes are really awesome. This is the only one I'm actually going to make. And I actually got on a train and came here to hear it. And I'm glad I did. This is really awesome. So I'm glad you guys are doing this work.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, from archaeology, coming from archaeology, naturally I would always try to state that material culture has a grammar and has rules too. While they are not so precisely nailable like in ancient languages, and naturally that brings up the question: how will grammar rules in language do in information system, and how will rules in material culture information systems do? It has been mentioned before that it would be interesting to monitor because there is a system that has some presuppositions and predefinitions about what's right and wrong, and what's the rule for this and what's the rule for that. And it would be nice to think about the question that Martina mentioned, how to build a system that can monitor which rule is used in connection with what other rule, and how the rules are going to connect from a question through a way, of operations there. I think if you just monitor everything and just flag it what's right or wrong, or what the system tells you is right or wrong, then you would end up with a statistical view that shows you have to read it and analyze it naturally and try to understand it. But that would be very interesting also in terms of the more unsafe world of material culture rules, and if you can monitor information systems and people's transactions in there and find how much they apply to certain rules or not. Naturally, with the archaeological or material culture information systems, it wouldn't be as easy to say, like here, this is right or this is wrong. In ancient languages, Monty Python shows you that it's a clear thing that can be right or wrong with a Latin expression, you know. But that's not so easy in material culture. But naturally, that's what we would like to see in how people interact with research data about material culture, trying to understand in the way that people are navigating through a system, navigating rightly, navigating wrongly, to get quite an understanding of what is noise and what is signal in there. So I think this could be a very interesting entrance door to say, coming from a rule-based information system about language information, looking into thing like material culture that also has its languages but less precisely defined ones. That would be an interesting research project, I would say. And one could start here, so to say. One could just spy you, and then, or we could try to do it together in a way to see how this can be monitored, and then ask how other procedures could be monitored too. I've never thought it that way, but I think that should be possible here, or not. If you just follow what people are doing, trying to put in some analytical criteria about rights or wrongs that the system itself explains, and it could be a very good exemplary, starting pad, probably.
Or we should probably combine the two approaches that I was.
Yeah.
Probably.
So I think this is also important for material culture. Yeah. We are not talking about language only here. There are always some people who have this in the ISIT that have this strange notion that there is a separation also. You can't see that.
Sure.
I'm going to ask, just go back to a term you use, which I think of it a different way, which is blended learning. So in my experience, we use blended learning to describe a mixture of distance learning and face-to-face learning, whereas what you described was you go home and do homework and you come to class, which is what I was doing when I was a kid. But I raise that just because I don't care about the terminology, but if you have the opportunity for people to interact outside of class and wrestle with the same sentences or try to analyze sentences or do something together so that they show up in class and they talk face to face about the things they couldn't figure out, I think that would be very productive. How many Greek students do you have? You actually have, I know there's a substantial number.
Currently, I think it's between 15 and 20 per year. So there's 4 years, that's about 80 students in total. Was that just in KU or in all? How many students in the Dutch? Do you know how many Greek students in the Dutch-speaking world? In Dutch, I'm not sure about that, but it's just at KU Leuven 80 students. And about the same number in Ghent. So, say about 150 in Flanders in total.
You have a pretty big number of secondary school students, I think.
Yes. Most secondary schools offer Greek of some sort. So, not necessarily up to the last year of secondary school, but most of them do.
Alright, any other questions? I have one question about the exercises. So you said, well, it's a nice tension between releasing the data openly and also using some proprietary system, which is fine. Are you going to release also the source data for the examples? Or maybe thinking of having one publicly accessible application with some other system for the exercises and then using this Toledo system for the...
Well, right now we're using Edumatic as a system for our to make our exercises. But obviously there is a possibility to use other applications. because the source code of our exercises is exported from the same database that contains our grammar.
So the data for the exercises are going to be released?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's all in the same database.
Mhm.
So right now we've got about 10,000 Greek sentences assigned to one rule or another. So.
Well, and I find very interesting that they're using the CPS URLs because you will be able to offer a view based on the authors and the works. What are the most cited and in which level of language, and I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, we've included the TLG numbers for all our authors and works, so we can easily generate CTS numbers.
If there are no further questions, I suggest that we thank again the speaker and then we move to the web.